This is Remote Ruby.
Have you any remote idea to the meaning of the word?
What's up?
What's up?
This might be the weirdest one we've ever done.
Yeah, I'm freaking out over here.
Chris and I have recorded together live, but Chris and I are together live, but you're still at Denver.
Right. And Jason and I have recorded live.
Yeah, we recorded live together like 3 days ago.
Yeah, that was a thing. I'm glad you remembered that.
I think this one will come out before the live recording. I think this will come out next week and the live recording's one after.
Probably.
It was in an email, so I doubt you know anything about it.
Well, I went through because my email client just got like a brand new update that I'm beta testing. So I actually went through and cleaned out a lot of emails today. And I did see when we were going to release that episode. So yes, I did see it.
How many people are on that one?
There were 6 of us. Gemma, Andrew,
Yes.
me, Emily, Nick,
Jason.
and Jason Sweat.
Yeah.
Nice. How'd it go? Was it good? What'd you talk about?
We talked about some podcasting stuff. We took some live questions. That was cool. Had some hot takes. A stellar ending, I think.
Yeah.
Jason Sweat tries to like make this statement. And like, if no one would have said anything, it'd been really deep. Andrew was holding me back. Do not say anything. And I was like, F it. Here we go. And then that was the end of the podcast. Andrew also gave me a compliment at the bar one night that sent me into a spiral. It's about the ums.
Oh, with the ums.
Yeah, you said you've been really good about not saying lately. And I was like, what do you mean?
No, I said you have been really good.
Oh, like.
You've been saying like recently.
That's right. He said, yeah, our editor tried to edit them out one time and just said, I can't do it. And I was like, I don't think you're supposed to tell me that.
I'm pretty sure he said that to us one time. I don't know. I could have made that up.
Well, he did not say it to me. So maybe check your CCs before you start dropping truth bombs everywhere.
It was a compliment. How could you do this to me? You backpedaled it into an insult when it was a compliment.
That's because I'm so good at like looking for all my problems. Damn it. Now every time I say like.
Yeah, that's a sure way to make you like self-conscious real fast.
I think you should just ignore that and just forget I said that. I think that's my best.
We talked to Raphael and some other people from Shopify when we were at a party one night. And I can confirm they love the way we say YJIT.
YG.
Yes. Perfect. We need that on a t-shirt or something.
They were not a fan. I'm being very facetious. What else did we do? So the conference was Monday. I got to Denver at 7:20 in the morning and able to check in my room at 7:50 a.m.
Clutch.
And I thought to myself, I could sit here all day and program, which would be a lot of fun, or I'll regret that. So I made myself be uncomfortable and I went and got brunch. And then I ran into Ernie Miller. That turned into lunch. And then Andrea got there. No, then Andrea got there first. Hung out with Andrea for a little while. Then Andrew rolled in. We all went to dinner. We had some world famous Colorado lobster.
Yeah, we did.
That was a big day. I say it was a big day. Everything I'm describing to you is food, but still.
We talked about this a few times, but you guys don't listen to the podcast. I do. And I was listening to our episode today. What I said that I wanted to do in Denver was go eat with friends. Which is exactly
nailed that.
Yeah, it's exactly what I did all week long.
It was good. Andrew loved the lobster. And what else? Did a lot of walking. I hit all 3 Apple Watch rings every day.
I hit some goals. I hit some new achievements as well.
It was everything I wanted out of getting a RubyConf experience. Seeing friends, seeing some talks, seeing more friends.
How many people are there?
655 were registered in person with another like 600 online. So
wow.
Yeah.
It's a good turnout.
Yeah, it was a really good turnout.
I did notice the last day they set the badges out just as a self-serve area for anybody checking in late. And there were quite a few badges still hanging around, like understandably, but it was nice having people there. I was surprised that there were people that were comfortable with hugs.
Breaking news. I hugged Jason.
Yes, Andrew and I hugged. Andrew got sentimental on me yesterday.
I said something serious for the first time in my entire life.
I had spent the whole morning preparing to tell him something serious. And the stars aligned at a Mexican restaurant. No, not yet.
No, we decided to end the podcast. Sorry, Chris.
I had a ton of fun with Andrew. The thing I learned the most is that Andrew just does whatever. So my friend Jonathan, who gave me COVID this time last year, was in Denver for a couple of days. And he's like, I'm going to a Nuggets game. I was like, I don't know if any of my friends will be in that. And Andrew's like, yeah, I'm in. And not only am I in, Andrew was debating like, maybe we can get courtside seats. Way another level than me.
Hey man, I went to have fun. Well, I mean, we went to that and that was a ton of fun. And then yesterday, Colin and I went to an Avalanche hockey game, which was also a ton of fun.
Was that also at the Ball Arena?
It was.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
I figured that because when we were at the basketball game, I was looking up, I guess you call them in the rafters, and they had banners and they were not basketball banners.
Yeah, there's like a sculpture in one of the areas that we didn't actually walk through, but it's the hockey and like basketball. So yeah, they shared that arena.
It's cool. Did you watch any of Max's streamed keynote, Chris?
Yeah, I didn't realize it was streamed.
Oh, maybe it wasn't.
I didn't know if it was like just available for the virtual RubyConf tickets or not. So I didn't pay attention to any of that.
I think it was only for if you're in the virtual con.
Gotcha.
So what was that about?
It was pre-recorded, which was cool and weird because I missed Matt's. There's a FedEx Kinko's in the hotel we were staying at. And I literally was like, wouldn't it be offensive if I'm like, man, I wish Matt's was here, and went and got a poster printed of him and just held it up next to people so they could take selfies with Matt's? But I didn't do it because I'm a coward. But the talk was great.
You should have told me. That's a great idea.
There's always a next conference somebody's missing from. The talk was good. It was on the Ruby 3 Nexus, I think is the term he used, and about how Ruby 3 mostly achieved the goals of Ruby 2, but how can Ruby move forward? It was really interesting because he talked about how all these languages have adopted static types, and he does not like static types, but we need it. And the argument was really interesting. And correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, Andrew, but there were two arguments for the like type system. One of them was that developer is either productivity or happiness today is around the tooling you use. And so having a type system will help IDEs, things like that. And that was a really good point because that's a thing. That is one of the only reasons I would want static typing from a language. JavaScript can even do it, but TypeScript helps quite a bit.
Yeah.
JavaScript just has really good tooling around it because it has massive corporations. That was one thing, was kind of the developer ergonomics, but also there are some like safety checks that types can give you.
This reminds me of an old conversation I had with one of my friends that I went to school with. Imagine being able to use Rails or like develop Rails or any gem or anything where you could have the types enabled so that you could kind of like, hey, you passed nil and we expected a hash from the language or from the library point of view. But being able to disable that while you're figuring out what the heck you want your app to do. Yeah. And then the more set in stone your product becomes, the more you could enforce types. And then eventually, if you got it all typed, you could just compile it like Crystal. So in between Ruby and Crystal, where you could go seamlessly from one to the other, I think would be like the dream. Because on some level, like the whole value of a lot of the Ruby stuff is that, yeah, you can make up a class that responds to whatever methods and then voila, it works without having to define an interface and all that. But like, you can do that to experiment and figure out how you want it to work. And then once you're like, okay, this seems good, then you could start enforcing types and stuff and like use it as your Scratch version. And then once you're like, okay, I think we're settled on how we want this to work, you could start locking things down. I always thought that would be an interesting thing.
That's kind of the approach of RBS. And I hadn't thought of it, but in that terms, I've thought of it as actually like, oh, I'm not going to adopt this because I have to go update this separate file every time. But you're right. As you start to finalize things, then, well, hopefully it will just stay that way. That's actually really interesting. I mean, we don't get the extra step of going to Crystal, right? Or like compiling it.
Not yet. But you can imagine that if you can do it in Crystal right now, like you could do that in Ruby too eventually. Like I always think about like a lot of my projects are brand new experiments and things, and typing doesn't really add any value. But think about Shopify and Stripe and Podia and GitHub and all these companies are like, we have a product and it works the way that it works. And we chose that. Some of these we want to refactor. Maybe we don't write that in stone, but we could write other parts in stone that we're very happy with or whatever. Or like write it in stone for now and then undo that later on when you decide it's time to rewrite that portion or whatever. But that's cool. I like that a lot. The tooling in Ruby has been terrible forever. And I think the convenience of like the big old red error page in Rails is scary to a lot of people, and the stack trace is huge and painful. So having better tooling that can just in your editor be like, yo, this is nil or this is the wrong type.
Right.
It feels less scary to people, I think. So it makes sense.
The other thing he talked about was that there will be not a lot of language features focused on right now. It will be more just about performance and tooling. And the performance, taking the performance thing further, he talked about how benchmarks are kind of useless in and of themselves, but that's not fair. Benchmarks don't give the full story is a better thing to say. Benchmarks only give you a subset of the story, but they really do matter to people when evaluating a language. And so in an effort for Ruby not to die, they're going to focus on benchmarks very heavily now. Not only like making Ruby perform better in benchmarks, but making the benchmarks themselves better. It was around that time he was talking about Python, and Python has an aim to make themselves 5 times faster. And he said, I want to be wrong about this, but I'm not sure how they'll do it, because he listed the things they're working on and the things that Ruby 3 now has that are very similar. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a hoorah speech, but it very much felt like I felt very comforted by all of the things he was talking about.
I mean, other than speed and the ability to add types and stuff, like what else would you want in Ruby anyways? If you want to pull in active support into Ruby, the language is already so malleable. It's hard to imagine other things that you might want. Like maybe there's more work that needs to go into fibers and stuff like that. Pieces that, I don't know, we probably don't do a lot of that kind of work in Rails development on a regular basis. We leave that up to Mike Perham to take care of for us. But actually, that's funny because I just did a screencast this week on the new load async in Rails 7.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm.
For anybody that's not familiar, you can take your active record queries and tell it to load immediately in a separate thread, which if you have 2 50 millisecond queries, instead of that taking a total of 100 milliseconds, it should take 50 milliseconds in total. And I was like fiddling with that in the Rails app in the screencast, and like the times at the end of your Rails requests that are like, you spent this much in your views and this much in your database and stuff. Hilariously, some of those are coming back as negative 61 milliseconds in your views. And it was like the total request time was like 155 milliseconds, negative 61 in the views, and like 210 in the database or whatever. Wow. And it was like still totaling up the database query time as a whole. It's not actually a calendar time or whatever you want to call that, but I thought that was pretty funny.
Speaking of Mike Perham, I don't want to brag, but I got to sit next to Mike on a limousine.
No. A party limousine. There's a distinct difference in the two.
Is there? I don't know. It was my first time.
You need to be in more limousines.
Think about,
Hold me up.
did you ever see the movie? No. Sorry, I don't want to drop any boomer stuff on you. There's a movie in 1996 when I was 7 years old that came out.
When I was born.
Okay, well, I was 7, so obviously I'm a boomer. And Andrew has called me all week. Anyway.
One time.
There's several limousines in the movie First Kid with Sinbad. And that's what I think about. Yeah, of course you don't know. Are you just trolling me now?
I mean, the name sounds vaguely familiar.
Bruh. I was about to pull up a picture of me and Sinbad, but you couldn't handle it. You couldn't handle it.
Probably not right now. Maybe later. Maybe
I'm not even tell the rest of the story.
Well, now I'm upset.
Now you're upset. I was trying to compare limousines, but we were in like a party bus that just felt like a limousine.
Okay. Well,
Or lasers. The lasers were intense. I sat in the back on the way back because I had a panic attack on the way there because we were just like sandwiched in this thing. But the lasers just pointed directly into my eyeballs the whole ride home on the way back.
well, see, I was like, ooh, oh.
We were in the party bus, the limousine, and someone offered Andrew a drink. He said, "I'm not 21," and they believed him.
Yeah, that did happen. That I can confirm that. Their face changed so fast when I said that.
I ate way too much. I walked way too much. I arguably hung out with Andrew way too much. Chipped a tooth, rode in a party bus,
Well,
eating a pizza at the movie theater that we took the party bus to.
how'd you chip a tooth eating pizza?
I fell off my bike as a kid and I chipped my front teeth. I think I've been seeing the same dentist since I was a kid. I took a brief period of seeing someone else. But whatever filling he puts on apparently has a lifespan. The last time I fell out, I was eating a Big Mac. So,
This is his subscription business for you. He like intentionally doesn't let it last very long.
his DAS, dentistry as a service. I guess dentistry as a service.
Do you have a retainer?
So done. Jason had some amazing jokes this week, I'll say.
Andrew told me I was funnier in person. And once again, I was like, thank you.
If you didn't figure this out, there's not really a filter like most people. It just kind of like flows in and flows back out. It's like a tide.
There were 2 times this week I saw Andrew hella triggered. One was in our live recording, someone asked, what would you change to the Ruby community? And Andrew, basically, if anyone else was going to try and talk, Andrew was going to just like throw a stone at them. And he like was about to stand up and have a seat, you know, because Andrew is passionate about junior devs. And it's a really good thing to be passionate about. The second time he was triggered, we were in Colin's car on the way back from the Mexican restaurant yesterday. And someone said, "Oh yeah, what kind of dog do you want to get?" Yeah, I can't even repeat the things Andrew said about the kind of dog he doesn't want. It was intense.
I have nothing to say. No comment.
It was a good trip. I told everyone, there are several people who made the comments to me, "I wish Chris was here." To which I always responded, "Yeah, I don't know why he won't come to these things. Not because I'm actually angry that he won't, but because I just want to hang out with him."
I really wish I got to go. We've been doing so much crap for this house that the second it's done, I'm going to have this giant weight off my shoulders. If that wasn't going on right now, I would have gone for sure.
Why build a foundation for a house to live in when you could have built a foundation of friendship?
So true.
We'll just have a conference at my new house.
I saw that. The RailsConf 2023 location. I got to meet so many cool people.
That's the best part about conferences. It's just so much fun to meet everybody there.
It's even different this time because it's been 2 years. And people not...
Everybody's got withdrawals.
Yeah. Not only am I excited to meet, but like people were excited to meet me back. It was cool. Like Julian from the Go Rails.
Oh, yeah.
I sat down, I was like, "You're Julian." He's like, "You're Jason." And it's just stuff like that.
That is the most fun part of conferences. These people you've talked to online for years, you finally meet them in person and you're like, it feels like we're friends for the last 10 years, but we've just never met.
It was kind of that way, especially with Colin and Drew Bragg. And Andrew and I talked, but that's the first time we like hung out. I know I posted a lot of pictures with Andrew, but I just like, I don't know. It was just like we just were meant to be together this trip. It was great.
I hope this is true. I'm like exactly how I am all the time. I'm always on. It's always the same. I had a ton of fun hanging out with Jason, and Drew Bragg was great, and Jacob Harrington. You know, Colin, I got to hang out, and yeah, and Andrea and Andrew Culver and Josh Wood and Ben, and I could keep going on and on. So, and everyone that was there for the podcast, like Gemma and Emily and Nick and Jason, it was a ton of fun.
Chris, you know what really just bugs me?
It seems like it's on the tip of my tongue.
Bugs.
Oh, dang it. I knew it.
All bugs.
Of course.
Real bugs. Bugs in my app. Bugs Bunny. Anything with a bug in it bugs me.
I can see why.
So I'm asking Chris for your professional opinion as a thought leader in the industry. How should I handle these bugs?
I learned in school that honey badgers are really good with bug problems.
You mean a literal honey badger?
Or maybe honeybadger.io.
But if I sign up for Honey Badger, what do I get?
Well, something that is really useful that actually just saved my butt the other day was their uptime monitoring. I was doing an update on one of my apps and made a deploy and didn't notice right away that it went down. So that was a really good, useful feature there. Not to mention that they've got your error monitoring for those bugs. Yeah. You should go check out Honey Badger, it sounds like.
Sounds like it. See you, Chris.
The other thing that happens is like the impromptu get-togethers, because obviously like dinner's so fluid every night. It's just like whoever's around when dinner plans are made, you go with.
Yeah.
But we were sitting there Tuesday afternoon at the conference, and I was talking to Nate Bick, I believe is his name.
Mm-hmm.
I believe his last name is Bick, and Ben Wood, and they have a consultancy, Hint.io. And we were just talking about food. Josh was there too, Josh Wood. And oh yeah, Nate was telling me that for Thanksgiving, he will inject his turkeys with sauce from a local hot wing place. And I was like, you are a freaking genius. And then proceeded to tell me other things. And I was like, now I'm listening because I freaking love wings. And they're like, oh, we have this wing place in Portland that's so good. The only other location not in Portland is here in Denver. And then the next thing I know, a bunch of us the next day are going to lunch. Like Nate and Ben have gotten like Uber Black cars for us and take us like across the city to eat there. It was so awesome.
I can't count how many times we went out to some random dinner place and spent way too much money and just had a really good time at dinner after. You just happen to be like, oh, last talk of the day, standing in the hallway, not sure where you're going to go. And then people show up and you're like, well, you want to go to dinner? Love it.
Talking to someone who's actually a Ruby dev in Memphis, her and I got connected for some like unfortunate reasons beforehand. So I was like, well, hey, let's meet up in Denver. And so she hung out with us. And then the last night we were sitting there at the table and I just asked her like Memphis questions. And like a common question you ask people in Memphis is, oh, like you go to church anywhere? And she goes, yeah, I go to this church. That's where I go to church. The next thing I know, like this person I met in Denver, we really should have run into each other like the past year and a half. So now Sunday when I go to church, I will know someone new.
That's awesome. It really is a smaller community than it seems big. And yet it's just such a good, tight-knit community, I think.
Totally. See, this is a problem with the Intel Mac. It says I have 415 unread messages because I haven't been on this computer all week.
Well, we did schedule some upcoming guests, so we should have some fun new content coming down the pipeline.
Yeah. So I was planning on talking to Emily while we were at RubyConf because I had reached out to her before we had the kid. And I was like, hey, we'd love to have you on the show. Then Shanna had the baby and didn't talk to Emily or anyone for a while. I was telling Andrew about it. And he just calls me out on the podcast like, Emily, I'm so sorry that Jason ghosted you.
It was after.
It was while we were recording.
No, it was not.
Promise you it's while we were recording.
No, it wasn't. I promise. Bet. No, bet.
Now I am publicly for the second time because Andrew already did it once.
Oh, yeah.
This one's on me. I don't know. They're just like conversations. They would be like, this is a really cool podcast topic. Yeah. Some of them not even programming related. At least the ones the conversations I had where I was like, you should come on the show. We're not about programming.
I know. I think about only code all week long. Code by day, code by night.
I know it's like an impromptu episode, but I wanted to acknowledge Mike Rogers and all he did for the community. If you didn't know, Mike passed away recently. And yeah, I don't know how to word it, but everyone that I've spoken to has always spoken so highly of him. A person I was actually talking to in Memphis, when I said unfortunate circumstances, she was one of Mike's coworkers, and I can tell he meant so much to her. So he was a Ruby developer, met lots of people, and I just wanted to acknowledge how great Mike was.
I mean, the last 3 days or something, I keep seeing his name pop up on tutorials and repositories and videos and stuff. He'll be missed very much.
Yeah. Gemma in their talk gave a nice little tribute to him that I thought was very well done and well deserved. So, I mean, Mike was my friend. Like we talked a bunch. We hung out in Discord sometimes, called each other at 4 a.m. my time here and there just to hang out. And I'm going to miss him. He made a lot of great content and he was great in the community. And I think, yeah, he'll be missed, but yeah, it's very sad.
We've talked to Andrew is there too. We've talked to a couple of people about the greater community is coming up with some ways to honor Mike's name and just different ways to maybe, show his family how much his community we cared for him. And if once we know more about that, we will also share that here for anyone else.
For sure. Because there were some great ideas put out and I think we'll definitely try to follow through and see what we can do.
Yeah, for sure. But that was the somber note. I'm grateful though. There were actually some people I got to meet at the conference and talk to about Mike. It's the kind of like legacy I would want to leave behind, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's not much new Ruby things to talk about. Ruby 3.10, the alpha came out. I tried to use it and I couldn't for other reasons.
Do you know what changed in it? Or is it just like Christmas is coming up, better release a new one?
Widget is the first thing. And is that Eileen gave a really great talk on how they sped up CBars in Ruby 3.1.
Oh, cool.
So apparently everyone's app is going to be faster because Rails relies heavily on CBars in certain places. So she was able to show performance improvements because of this change, because just by upgrading to Ruby 3.1.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's something to look forward to is basically if you can upgrade to Ruby 3.1, there's reason to because your Rails app will be faster.
Sweet.
There's talk that Widget, the way Matt's described it is Widget's right on the edge of making the cut. The only thing that would hold it back is that Christmas is almost here. But it sounds optimistic like Widget will be in there by 3.1.
Yeah. Some other great talks. I got to see someone flying drones with Ruby and gave me tons of probably really poor ideas that may or may not get executed when I get back to Phoenix.
Yeah, I can't wait for the FAA to shut you down.
I'm a little close to Sky Harbor, so to keep a low altitude here.
You can go up to 400 feet. So I've flown my drone into the house once already and into the trees twice. Maybe I'll be a little bit more precise with programming it instead.
Well, he had 2 and he was able to make them flip in unison and it was so cool. And it made me kind of start to realize for the Olympics in Japan this year, they did a drone show. It was so sick. And I was like, but how would you even do that? But this started, I was like, oh, well, it's actually not that crazy to envision how this could take place now.
Yeah.
Now you need to go buy 20 drones.
Yeah, I think this is going to be my villain arc, honestly.
Another trip to the mall, am I right?
Another trip to the mall.
You call me the boomer. You shop at a mall.
I like to touch things in ADHD.
I like to do laps at the mall.
I do. I like to do laps.
Yeah, in full Adidas gear. That's another thing I learned this week.
Yeah, it's true. I'm still doing it.
He's showing us his Adidas gear.
Yeah, I have nothing to say about that. I learned that Jason is a lovely human in person, which was a surprise. But
I don't like cucumbers.
I learned that you don't like cucumbers or armadillos.
Do not like armadillos.
How'd the armadillo one come up? Cucumbers, I can imagine.
In the same breath. He said it in the same breath.
They're my 2 non-negotiables.
He encountered a cucumber and that was it for him. Lunch was over. And
Well, yeah.
I don't like cucumbers. I don't like armadillos.
Every time he orders food, he's like, there's no cucumbers or armadillos in this, is there? Because I'm allergic.
Armadillos, I don't know. I was just driving one time and I was like, what the F is that? And then I learned it was an armadillo. And I was like, I never want to see that ever again. And it's just exponentially gotten worse in my head. It might be a therapy thing, but.
Well, okay. I will say, just to make you a little jealous, we went to a Brazilian steakhouse for night. It was so good. So Denver confirmed has some good food.
I saw Nick's first time was at the Brazilian steakhouse.
Yeah, they came with us.
I found out about them at a conference once too, way back when. So,
well, that's where we should go for dinner because we have one here.
I won't say no to that.
My kids will get us kicked out.
I might get you kicked out.
So, Jason, what was your favorite part about the conference? If you had to, other than, I guess, outside of just seeing people, take the easy answer away.
That was the best part.
The food.
I will say, like we say, the people is the best part. I believe that. I truly believe that. The return to normalcy from that, it wasn't fully back to normal, but it felt back to normal.
Yeah.
And that was nice. The Nick Means talk on the 737 MAX was, I don't have words for it. Like, it was as good as I wanted it to be, but more, you know? It was what I expected from Nick, but he also still blew me away. And he started his talk with a content warning, as this talk is about airplane crashes. So if you're nervous about flying, you might want to leave. And I'm like, well, I am nervous about flying, but let's go.
We probably shouldn't fly together. The last time we went to RubyConf, our plane started to kind of smoke right before we were about to take off. So we pulled back in the terminal. And as we were about to leave again, I leaned over to my buddy who I was flying with, and I was like, you know, statistically, you're most likely to die on takeoff. And so I'm that guy. So we probably shouldn't fly together.
No, I got some meds that will, I want to say, help me like chill out, but they'd mostly just help me probably not listen to that. For me.
Yeah.
They're Andrew Mason meds.
Let me know where to get some of those.
It's a little cocktail I made.
Cool. Anything else?
Talks are good. Seeing people's like, I know what you say, it's the easy answer, but that was it for me.
That's what it was for me too.
That's why I overpay to stay in the hotel, because down in the lobby, everyone's hanging out. Like I said, the first day, my friend Jonathan was in Denver and he stayed with me a couple of nights, and he was in the lobby like, hey, I'm here. I was like, well, I'll come meet you in the lobby. He's like, all right, let's go. I was like, no, just sit here. Like, we're going to run into someone. It was like 11 a.m. on Sunday. Sure enough, Ernie and Miller walked by, and next thing I knew, we were at lunch. That's what I'm there for. Oh, and also if you're looking for a job, podia.com/jobs are still hiring. If you saw me at RubyConf, or especially if you saw Andrea, that's the thing.
They were out there. So what are y'all going to do now? Y'all are going to a game, right?
A game. Yeah. It's just a University of Memphis basketball game. But a week before I left for RubyConf, Shannon said, hey, Brooke and Chris, we're wanting to come down. And I was like, oh, that's super badass. And then 2 hours later, Shannon's like, hey, Brooke and Chris are coming down. So yeah, we're just hanging out. They got here a little bit ago.
Yeah.
So when are y'all going to start Mad Men 2? Or has this already happened?
No.
Another project we never finished.
Yeah.
Knowing that we won't finish it, we could probably go for something more ambitious.
We're going to start work on that, I think.
We're looking to invent an airplane that can go around the world in 1 hour using all Ruby.
Oh, wow. Okay. Ambitious? I don't know how I feel about that.
Well,
I mean, statistically, you're going to die on takeoff.
not statistically are you more likely to die, just statistically you will. What was your favorite part of the conference before we wrap this? You can't say talks and people, food, Denver.
Or Ruby.
Or Ruby. My favorite part was Jason talking about Laravel at a Ruby conference. Now, I really enjoyed...
You need to get you a Laravel t-shirt to wear.
I'll wear it so proudly.
I really enjoyed the live podcast we did. I think that went really well. So, I mean, that was one of our objectives. So I think that went great.
So we need a Taylor Otwell cutout and Max. That's what we really
Sorry, which one did you want to selfie with?
The other one hiding in the background.
And maybe like a DHH one that just kind of peeks its head out from behind the other one.
And as long as it's that black and white one.
The one that's used everywhere.
But yeah, I think that was a really fun experience for me. But when Andrew Culver invited us to go to the movies, that was a lot of fun. Getting to meet new people on the bus or people like that, you know, you kind of know around the internet but haven't met officially. But yeah, I mean, ultimately it was the people hanging out with some of our listeners was a lot of fun. I was sitting in the hotel lobby and CJ from Stripe came up to me. He's like, hey, I recognized your voice.
Hanging out with CJ. Awesome. CJ was so awesome to hang out with.
Yeah. He was super, super smart, kind guy.
I had to look up the name because I've been horrible with names. Justin Bowen. He kind of hung out with us some, but we had lunch yesterday and then just shared an Uber on the way to the airport and talked for like the whole time, which is just like a testament to that community of Ruby, because that could have been so uncomfortable, right? But it was like, no, like we'll ride together. And we talked. It was awesome.
I love it.
And he came and got lunch with us. We were about to go, me, Jason, Drew Bragg, and Colin. And we were like, hey, come with us. Well, Jason said that to his credit. Jason's a very welcoming person, I will say. I stuck to him most of it because he was like that.
I'm glad to hear you say that because I try to be. Only because people were such like that to me when I first joined.
Yeah. Felt very comfortable being around you.
I've also never taken off in an airplane already 5,000 feet in the air. So that was cool. Because Denver's the mile.
Oh.
5,000.
There's so much math going on in my head right now.
This is not the first time that math has come up as a thing this week. Math and someone in your life.
It's true. I have themes in my jokes.
So anything else from the week?
I'm going to say that I think the Ruby Central did an amazing job doing this conference, and a big thanks to them and everyone involved, everyone who volunteered, everyone who was a scholar and volunteered their time there, everyone who took someone who they saw alone into their group and hung out with them this week. Thank you to everyone and to the Ruby community, because we had a great time, and this was a challenging conference to put on, right? There was the virtual aspect of it. There was COVID, and at one point someone did get COVID. They handled it great, and I'm just really thankful that they were able to do this and that the people who spent their time making this happen did that.
I could see how getting that email would be stressful. Receiving their email was like, oof. But then it was like, I don't know. They've done a lot of things to make me not as worried about it because they already had precautions in place and precautions for in the event this happens. It was good. And I don't know how any group could have done it any better.
Yeah. So a big thank you to the organizers and the sponsors and everyone involved who came together to make this happen, because we had a great time.
Great time.
Learned a lot of new things. What was your favorite thing you learned, Jason?
He didn't learn.
Yeah. Just leave the silence. Oh, no. I really enjoyed the Tinder Jit talk.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
That sounded like a good one. I can't wait to watch that.
It was really good. I talked about this in our live podcast. I'm pretty ignorant to how things under the hood work. But yeah, I'm so fascinated by it. And it's also very intimidating. And Aaron's talks just do such a good job of like keeping you engaged. I mean, towards the end, I was like, I can't learn anymore right now. But it was just like, so this is how this works. And I always remember like, oh yes, this is how stacks work and how Ruby takes 2 + 2 and builds a stack, pops it off. I just find it so fascinating. So that was one of the things I learned most. That besides learning just about every little detail of your life.
Aaron Patterson explained stack-based programming, or like how that works, better than any pure science professors I've ever had. So that was a really great talk. I learned what __n does from Nick Schwader's talk. And I didn't know about that. And that was like a small thing, you know, like comparison, because I learned all these other things. But that's the thing I think that's going to like, I'm going to be using that.
Cool.
When I dump crap into my files, which is all the time. Why doesn't this Rails app run anymore? Oh, I've got this massive JSON blob just pasted into like a controller.
Let's not forget about span class menu.
Oh yeah, span class menu. God rest its soul.
It's one of the downsides of having a QR menu. So we were eating at a Mexican restaurant yesterday, and one of the items was just like span class equals.
Yeah, because I complained because there was like a picture. It was like selecting like the style of food you wanted, like burritos or enchiladas or seafood or whatever. And it was like a picture attached to the menu label, and only the menu label was clickable. I felt the need to complain about that.
And then Drew's like, I'm so glad someone else noticed. And then it just became like a critique.
Yeah, we just kind of critiqued the website.
They like come to the table, you're ready to order, and Andrew's screaming at them, no, get away.
I can't use your app.
I had a margarita with charcoal in it. So if that,
I learned a lot of things I didn't know about myself.
That's a really introspective week for you.
I don't know about charcoal. I had a visceral reaction to a certain breed of dogs. Yeah, I learned I'm just as awkward as I thought I am. It's great.
I already knew that about myself. Conference just kept driving it home. And I learned that Dune's a pretty good movie. I think with that, we're Dune with this podcast.
I think I liked it. I don't know. I have feelings about it.
The podcast or the pun?
The pun and the podcast.
I got really comfortable around Andrew. I started taking some real leeway with my puns, and
they were good. I enjoyed all of them.
There's one, we were in an Uber and you just shut it down. It was on the way back from the Nuggets game. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, we'll just leave that for that. All right. Well, you two have fun and be safe tonight. And I will be flying back to Phoenix. I can't wait to be back because it's way too cold in Denver. I cannot stand it here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I need to do it again. All right.
Goodbye.
Bye.